What happens when a royal guest forgets where he is and who he's talking to? In just 32 seconds, Prince Harry went from smiling interviewee to the most controversial talk show guest in Good Morning America history. The morning started like any other. Lara Spencer sat behind the bright desk, her smile warm and welcoming as the cameras rolled live across the nation. Millions of viewers were tuning in for what they thought would be a pleasant conversation about charity work and royal life. Nobody could have predicted what was about to unfold. Prince Harry walked onto the set with an air of confidence that seemed just a little too thick. He shook Lara's hand, but there was something off about his demeanor. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Lara, ever the professional, gestured to the chair across from her. "Welcome to Good Morning America. We're so thrilled to have you here," Lara said, her voice genuine and kind. Harry settled into his chair, adjusting his jacket. "Happy to be here," he replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. Lara started with a simple question about his recent charity initiative. It was soft, easy, the kind of question meant to warm up the conversation. But Harry's response was clipped, almost dismissive. "Well, I think what we're doing is far more important than most people realize," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Not everyone understands the level of commitment required." Lara nodded, trying to keep things light. "Absolutely. Can you tell our viewers more about how they can get involved?" "If they're truly committed, they'll figure it out," Harry said with a slight shrug. "We don't need people who are just looking for photo opportunities." There was an uncomfortable pause. Lara's smile remained fixed, but her eyes showed a flicker of surprise. The crew behind the cameras exchanged glances. This wasn't going as planned. "Of course," Lara said smoothly, trying to redirect. "I think our viewers would love to hear about the actual programs you're running. What does a typical day look like for the people you're helping?" Harry sighed audibly, as if the question bored him. "Lara, I'm not here to give a tedious breakdown of logistics. I assumed your audience would be more interested in the bigger picture." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. Lara sat up straighter, her professional composure holding firm. "Well, I think our audience is incredibly intelligent and interested in all aspects of charity work," she said, her tone still pleasant, but with a hint of steel underneath. "They want to know how their support makes a real difference." "Your audience," Harry repeated, his eyebrows raising. "Right. Well, perhaps if American media spent less time on celebrity gossip and more time on substantive issues, we wouldn't need to spell everything out." The studio went quiet. Even the camera operators seemed to freeze. Lara's expression shifted, ever so slightly. Her smile remained, but it was different now. Tighter. More controlled. "I think American media does an excellent job covering a wide range of topics," Lara said, her voice measured. "And our viewers are here because they care about the work you're doing." "I'm just trying to help them understand it better." Harry leaned forward, his demeanor growing more aggressive. "Are you? Or are you trying to get a soundbite for your next segment?" "I'm doing my job," Lara replied, her patience beginning to show cracks. "Which is to have a meaningful conversation with you about your charitable efforts." "Meaningful?" Harry scoffed. "You want meaningful? Let's talk about how morning shows like this one reduce important global issues to 3-minute segments between cooking demonstrations and celebrity interviews." Lara took a breath. The audience at home could sense the tension building. This wasn't the playful banter of a normal interview. This was something else entirely. "We actually dedicate quite a bit of airtime to serious issues," Lara said, her voice firm now. "But I'm confused about why you agreed to come on the show if you have such disdain for the format." "Someone on my team thought it would be good exposure," Harry said dismissively, "though I'm starting to question their judgment." "As am I," Lara said quietly, but the microphone picked it up perfectly. Harry's face darkened. "Excuse me?" "I said, as am I," Lara repeated, louder this time. "You came on this show, supposedly to talk about helping people. But all you've done is insult our program, our viewers, and frankly, me. I'm simply being honest, Harry shot back. Maybe that's something you're not used to in your line of work. The gasps from the crew were audible now. This had crossed a line. Lara's eyes flashed with something close to anger, but she maintained her composure with remarkable grace. Honesty is something I value deeply, Lara said, her voice steady and strong. And honestly, I've interviewed hundreds of guests on this show. Politicians, activists, actors, authors, fellow members of royal families, and not one of them has shown the level of disrespect you're displaying right now. Harry stood up slightly in his chair, his body language becoming defensive. Disrespect? I'm the one being disrespected here. These questions are beneath me. Beneath you, Lara repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. These questions about your charity work, about helping people, those are beneath you. That's not what I meant, Harry started, but Lara wasn't finished. Then what did you mean? Lara asked, her journalist instincts taking over. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you came here expecting us to simply praise you without asking any actual questions. That's not an interview. That's a press release. Harry's face flushed red. You have no idea what kind of pressure I'm under. The scrutiny I face daily. You're right, I don't, Lara said, her voice softening just slightly. And I was trying to give you a platform to talk about that. To talk about your work, your challenges, your goals. But instead, you've spent the last several minutes attacking me and everyone who works on this show. Maybe because you're not asking the right questions, Harry snapped. Then tell me what the right questions are, Lara challenged. I'm here. The cameras are rolling. Tell me what you want to talk about. Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. For a moment, he seemed at a loss for words. Then his expression hardened again. I don't appreciate being put on the spot like this, he said coldly. Lara's laugh was short and incredulous. You're on a live talk show. Being on the spot is literally the entire premise. In England, we treat our guests with more courtesy, Harry said, his voice dripping with superiority. In America, we treat our guests with respect when they show respect in return, Lara countered immediately. You've been rude, dismissive, and condescending from the moment you sat down. I've been nothing but professional. Professional, Harry muttered. Is that what you call this ambush? Ambush? Lara's voice rose slightly. I asked you about your charity work. How is that an ambush? The tone, Harry said vaguely. The implication. There was no implication, Lara said firmly. I asked straightforward questions. You're the one who turned this into a confrontation. Harry shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable, but unwilling to back down. I think your American directness is rather off-putting. And I think your entitled attitude is rather off-putting, Lara fired back without missing a beat. The silence that followed was deafening. Harry's mouth fell open slightly. He clearly hadn't expected Lara to match his energy so directly. How dare you? Harry said, his voice low and dangerous. How dare I? Lara repeated. How dare I call out bad behavior on my own show? How dare I expect a guest to treat me and my team with basic respect? I'm a prince, Harry said, as if that explained everything. And I'm a journalist, Lara responded, and this is my show. And right now, you're being a terrible guest. Harry stood up abruptly, the movement so sudden that his chair rolled back slightly. I don't have to sit here and take this. You're absolutely right, Lara said, also standing. You don't. The door is right there. For a moment, they stood facing each other across the desk. The entire studio held its breath. Viewers at home were frozen, unable to look away from their screens. This is completely unacceptable, Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. Do you know who I am? Yes, Lara said simply. You're someone who forgot that being royal doesn't mean you get to treat people poorly. Harry's hands clenched at his sides. My grandmother would be appalled at how I've been treated here. I think she'd be more appalled at how you've behaved, Lara said quietly but firmly. That seemed to be the final straw. Harry's face went from red to almost purple. That's it. I'm done. This interview is over. It was over 5 minutes ago, Lara said. You just didn't realize it. Harry pointed at her, his fingers shaking. You've made a huge mistake. Do you understand that? A huge mistake. The only mistake I see is giving someone a platform who wasn't prepared to use it responsibly, Lara replied, her voice calm despite the chaos. You'll regret this, Harry said, starting to remove his microphone with fumbling, angry hands. I doubt it, Lara said, watching him struggle with the wire. A producer rushed onto the set to help with the microphone, but Harry waved them away aggressively. Don't touch me. I can do it myself. Then do it and leave, Lara said, her patience finally, completely exhausted. Harry finally freed himself from the microphone and threw it onto the chair. The sound it made was harsh and sharp through the studio speakers. You haven't heard the last of this, Harry said, his voice rising. I'm going to make sure everyone knows how I was treated here. Please do, Lara said. Tell everyone how you came on a morning show, insulted the host, insulted the viewers, refused to answer basic questions about your charity, and then threw a tantrum when you were called out for it. Harry's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He seemed unable to form a response. His face was a mask of fury and disbelief. Unbelievable, he finally managed. Absolutely unbelievable. I agree, Lara said. Your behavior has been absolutely unbelievable. Harry turned sharply, nearly knocking into a camera as he did. He stormed toward the edge of the set, his footsteps heavy and angry. Oh, and Harry, Lara called after him. He stopped, but didn't turn around. Next time you want to talk about helping people, Lara said, her voice carrying across the studio, try actually being helpful. Harry's shoulders tensed, and for a moment it seemed like he might turn back and say something else. But instead, he continued walking, disappearing into the wings of the studio. The cameras stayed on Lara, who took a deep breath and smoothed down her jacket. She looked directly into the camera, her professional mask sliding back into place, though her eyes still showed the emotion of what had just transpired. Well, she said to the camera, to the millions watching at home, that was unexpected. She paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. We're going to take a quick break, Lara continued, her voice steady once more. When we come back, we'll have Chef Marcus in the kitchen with a wonderful recipe for summer grilling. Stay with us. The cameras cut, but not before catching the small shake of Lara's head. A mix of disbelief and relief crossed her face as the red lights on the cameras dimmed. The crew stood in stunned silence. Nobody quite knew what to say or do. They had just witnessed something that would be talked about for years to come. A complete breakdown of a celebrity interview. A prince, no less, storming off a live television set after being confronted about his own rude behavior. Lara sat back down in her chair, letting out a long breath. Her hands were shaking slightly, the adrenaline of the confrontation finally catching up with her. But there was also something else in her expression. A quiet dignity, a sense that she had stood her ground when it mattered. A producer approached her cautiously. Lara, are you okay? She looked up and nodded. I'm fine. Is he gone? Completely, the producer confirmed. Left the building. Good, Lara said simply. Another producer chimed in. The phones are already ringing off the hook. Social media is exploding. Lara closed her eyes briefly. I'm sure it is. You handled that incredibly well, the first producer said. Really. He was completely out of line. Thank you, Lara said, opening her eyes again. But let's focus on getting through the rest of the show. We still have 2 more hours to fill. The professionalism in her voice was remarkable. She had just been through an incredibly tense, confrontational situation on live television, and yet she was already thinking about the rest of the broadcast. about her job, about her viewers. 2 minutes to commercial break end, a voice called out. Lara stood up, straightened her papers, and checked her appearance in the monitor. She touched up her hair slightly, took another deep breath, and prepared to continue as if nothing had happened. 30 seconds, the voice called. The crew scrambled back to their positions. Cameras were adjusted. Lights were checked. Everything had to be perfect for the return from commercial. 15 seconds. Lara rolled her shoulders back, lifted her chin, and found her smile again. Not the fake, plastered-on smile of someone pretending everything was fine, but the genuine, warm smile of someone who knew she had done the right thing and could move forward with confidence. 5, 4, 3, 2. The red light came back on. "Welcome back to Good Morning America," Lara said, her voice bright and clear. "As promised, we have Chef Marcus here with us now, and he's going to show us an amazing technique for grilling vegetables that will change your summer cookouts forever." And just like that, the show went on, professional, smooth, as if the last 15 minutes hadn't just made television history. But in living rooms and offices and coffee shops across the country, people were still talking, still processing, still rewinding their DVRs to watch the confrontation again, because what they had witnessed wasn't just a celebrity having a bad interview. It was a masterclass in standing up for yourself, in refusing to be bullied or talked down to, no matter who was doing the talking, in maintaining dignity and professionalism even when someone else had abandoned both. Lara Spencer had done something remarkable that morning. She had reminded everyone watching that respect is a two-way street, that titles don't excuse bad behavior, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is set a boundary and enforce it. And Prince Harry had learned a valuable lesson, whether he wanted to or not. That charm and status only get you so far. That American journalists don't bow and scrape just because someone has royal blood. That if you come onto someone's show and treat them poorly, you shouldn't be surprised when they show you the door. The interview that was supposed to be about charity and goodwill had instead become about something else entirely. About respect, about professionalism, about what happens when someone used to deference meets someone who refuses to give it unearned. As the show continued, Lara interviewed Chef Marcus with her usual warmth and engagement. She laughed at his jokes, asked thoughtful questions about his cooking techniques, and made him feel completely at ease. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. This was how interviews were supposed to go. This was the Lara Spencer that millions of viewers knew and loved. But they had also seen another side of her that morning. The side that didn't back down. The side that stood firm when challenged. The side that knew her worth and demanded to be treated accordingly. And that, perhaps, was the real story. Not that a prince had behaved badly. Not that an interview had gone wrong. But that a woman had stood her ground, maintained her professionalism, and refused to be diminished by someone who thought their title made them untouchable. The cameras kept rolling. The show kept going. And Lara Spencer kept doing what she did best, being an excellent host, a skilled interviewer, and a consummate professional. Everything that Prince Harry, in those 32 seconds and the minutes that followed, had proven he was not.